now. So video and audio recording. So I'm all good.
Awesome. Cool. There we are. We'll have we'll chat about the other bits after then, off the recording.
Yeah, sure.
Well, there we are. Is there anything in particular you wanted to cover today?
I want to do a little bit with autism, and also want to do a little bit about competing, training, dieting, like specific, not so broad as in like, oh, this is how you lose fat. I mean, like, how do you get from like ripped to like insanely out of your gourd sort of thing? So yeah, if I go off tangent a bit, just redirect me and just change the question. I'm chill.
I'm happy to go in whatever direction you want. Should we, because we recorded the original one, which I lost. Do you want to go back in and quickly go through like your journey and the reason you came into it and start? We can, there we are. We can always cut it down.
We can do it. That works, yeah.
Awesome. Right down. Let's kick it off. Happy day. Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Keto Pro Podcast with myself, Richard Smith. Today, I'm joined with a very good friend of mine, someone who has recorded with me previously, and I was silly enough to manage to lose that recording. So we're now back once again for round two. Jonathan, welcome on board.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me on. I think there's more to talk about in this recording, if anything. A lot of things have changed since. My viewpoints have changed a little bit. So it'll be an interesting chat. I'm looking forward to it.
Interesting. Fantastic stuff. As many of the listeners of our strict followers, they'll know that, you and I podcast quite regularly through YouTube or on a number of different platforms. But today, I wanted to broadcast this to my followers and highlight, your journey, why you came into this way of living, and what benefits, if any, that you've seen through gravitating towards this direction. So, take it away, John. Let's get it from the beginning.
Absolutely, yeah. So, where do I start? Carnivore diet, 2020, February the 2nd. Fun enough, if you look at the numbers, it's like 02, 2020 or something like that. A lot of zeros, lots of twos. That was completely accidental. It wasn't deliberate. But yes, about 5 years in now, very nearly, into carnivory. Where did it come from? I mean, I was actually following Phil Escott when I first sort of looked into this. I thought this is a bit of a wacky guy, but I like his sort of temperament. I like the information he puts out. Very simple. He makes things that are complicated very simple, which I quite like. At the time I was, managing a vegan health food shop. This was about a year or two, maybe 2 years after getting my degree in human nutrition. And yeah, I mean, that was a job that was available. I happened to be quite good at it. I met a lot of people, had lots of training, learned all about different supplements and things, the food law legislation in this country, things which were seemingly paramount to us as consumers, people that buy food, but they're not taking that seriously in terms of food law, and it's just not as strict as what we hoped. So that's basically how I came to it, through Phil Escott mostly. World Carnivore Month wasn't a thing until I didn't know what it was until about 2 years in. And it turns out it was a whole thing, and every month in January, for those who don't know, there's a massive spree on supermarkets and grocery stores to get all the meat, which eventually the prices go up. And so it's been an interesting journey. I've learned a lot along the way. I've been coaching people in the carnivore space, the low carb keto space as well. Lots of body composition kind of things. And, I don't deal too much with people with autoimmunity like perhaps Phil Escott or people with many health issues, but I deal with a lot of people with body compositions that they don't know how to tackle. So that's my strength as a coach. I love training as well. I love seeing my clients sort of progress with their exercise efforts through video performance analysis, things like that. But yeah, I mean, my carnivore diet initially, very lean. I came from a background a bit like Richard from, years ago, chicken, broccoli and rice. So the idea of having a fillet of salmon with 4, 5, 6 pats of butter on it was not a thing. It was what was the leanest salmon I could find for the leanest chicken breast, boiled. And that was my carnivore diet to start with. Had some initial benefits. My digestion was better, consuming less mass of food, less through my guts, less from my system. I felt a bit better overall, but I didn't get the fat portion right. So I wouldn't say I had rabbit starvation, but I just wasn't eating enough fat, got lean, could train. Work was a real pain in the backside. And we got no energy to do anything. You're working 50 plus hours a week, as Richard knows. It's tough. So you have to get the fat in, which I didn't really understand at the time. It's all about calories in, calories out, and how much protein can I get in relation to my fat intake to manage my body composition. But as time's gone on, I'm actually able to eat more now as a carnivore bodybuilder athlete than I was prior. I blame a lot of it to like mitochondrial efficiency, being better managed, being stricter as well. The first year, if I'm honest, maybe 6 months to a year, I was binge eating every few weeks, every month or so. We're talking about food. I mean, I buy a pack of 5 custard donuts with a large pizza from Domino's. I get Chinese takeaways, maybe 3 or 4 meals out of that, and that'd be maybe 2 sittings. Then I go off it and think, oh, I feel terrible. Headaches would come on. I couldn't sleep. My digestion was trash. My guts were out here. But the interesting thing about the carnivore diet is, despite my current condition, which we can get into if you like, I'm actually living better because of it. So my pain level baseline day to day with medication is about an 8 out of 10. And if I creep off my diet, it's about a 9. So I'm talking about like you don't want to move, and when you breathe, you feel like you're going to die kind of pain. So that's why for me, like yourself, Rich, you don't, if you're trying to optimize your body, biohack your body and your system, you're not going to want to make these deviations. But if I do make it, I make it with the conscious mind that this is going to trash me. I'm going to be real miserable to deal with for the next few days. So what do? I just go into my own shell, hide my room, and just think, God, this will pass eventually. And every time it does, but I'm still doing myself damage. So the main thing for me now is just being as adherent as I can whilst having that. It's a bit of a con, really, to say. It's a bit like that idea of balance in a carnivore diet. So yeah, maybe once a month I have some onions or something, my scrambled eggs, maybe a bit of mushroom. I make like a mushroom chicken broth or something. But I don't really go over the rails that much. I don't really take the mick. So if we looked at macronutrient composition of my meals from, I would say, 100-day span, we're talking like 99% plus carnivore. So it seems to be good enough for me. But yeah, what do you want to go into next?
Yeah, and you just made a couple of good points there. I think it's many who gravitate into this tend to start through the same means. I think they go too strict and then they fall off the wagon and binge. I know I did. I can attest to the Domino's with with the Chinese and the Indian takeaways. Yeah, it seems to be that that common gravitation, doesn't it? What about this Christmas? Obviously, time of recording, it's the 3rd of January, 25. So we've just come through the Christmas period. Did you deviate over Christmas at all?
Oh yeah, and I was very forthright about it prior to the occasion, Rich. I was like, yeah, I'm going to have this, that, and the other. So I had a bit of a tactic. So what I did was I waited a little bit longer until everyone sort of tucked in, had their food, because we had a 10.5 kilo turkey and about 3 kilos of roast beef between about 6 of us. So we had a lot of meat, Rich. So I was like, well, there's going to be plenty of meat left by the time I get downstairs, eventually move my backside. And yeah, so I waited like 5-10 minutes. Everyone else tucked in. By the time what I saw was left, there's maybe a few carrots, 3 or 4 Brussels sprouts. I think I had 2 roast potatoes, 2 tiny little roast parsnips, some gravy, beef turkey, and some peas. That was it. So what I'd consider a smaller adult-sized portion of stuff, decoration, rabbit food, then supplemented it with my meat-heavy diet. So that's what I did personally. What about you?
Yeah. Pretty similar, to be honest. So I cooked for my little girl. I don't eat veg at all. But I took her shopping and I only bought and cooked whichever vegetables, she wanted. And it was a similar story. So I put a few tiny new potatoes on my plate with a couple of the tiny little baby carrots and 1 or 2 roast parsnips. And that was it. Now, many will look at this and think, oh, you're a fraud. That's not carnivore. But what people don't understand is, because we are highly adapted, we've been living this lifestyle for an incredibly long time, we can afford to put these things in and it not affect us in the way in regards to an insulin response as it would when we first gravitated into the journey. I ate these things, I didn't feel too good after, I'll be honest. But this is what we call an exaggerated responsiveness, where our body's early warning alarm systems are basically telling us that, this is the shit that we don't want. Don't put it back in. But it didn't affect my ability to be in, a ketogenic state. And again, that's open for debate, because we're not always in a ketogenic state, even when we are ketogenic and carnivore. But it's our body's natural metabolic state. I put those in, didn't feel too good after, but it wasn't enough to hinder any of my progress moving forward. And it kept my little girl happy. So, it was a case of having that little meal with my little girl, keeping her with a smile on her face and enjoying, the festivities, or whatever, you want to call it. But I've got no inclination to put it in. I love eating meat. I don't find it restrictive. I don't find it boring. I would have quite happily have consumed the turkey, beef. I had duck, salmon, shitloads of other beef to last for the week. And that's what I've predominated. But it's I think the environment that we live in, the circles that we move in, can become incredibly dogmatic within the carnivore community. And I think it's unfortunate. The likes of Anthony Chaffee, I know, is super strict and he never deviates. I think the last time that he had alcohol was over a year ago. But I think the difference with the likes of people like Anthony is that he has never been a sugar addict, whereas I'm a sugar addict. I think it's probably safe to say that you are, and it's a lot more difficult to abstain. We get cravings that maybe he doesn't, and doesn't understand how addicted we were previously to some of these compounds. And it's a slippery slope, isn't it? It's what we've consumed over Christmas, I think, was enough. Had we put any more in, for me at least, there would have been a slippery slope, and I would have, if I fall off the wagon, I come off big time. And it's everything and anything that I can get my hands on, which I'm happy to say hasn't happened for many, many years. But in the early stages, that was a regular occurrence for me. I'd fall off the wagon and it would be every fast food takeaway. Within a day, it'd be McDonald's for breakfast, Burger King for lunch, Domino's for tea, and so on. But
I'm
it's
familiar,
yeah. But it's an addiction, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great if we could sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I'm really clean at eating. I don't deviate ever." And it's like, yeah, but there's going to be a day that comes by where you think, "Oh, I wish I didn't miss that." And a lot of my kind of eating behaviors now, where it's something maybe off plan or not carnivore, it's something I used to enjoy, something which I used to have with family, something which offers that nostalgia, that tradition. Like, I don't know, my nan used to take me a grated cheese sandwich with some Philadelphia spread in it or something. I love that. I really enjoy that. So that's, for me, it's tolerable. It's one sandwich, done. That might be every month or two, but that's about it. Be a roast dinner like we've just described, or I don't know, like a Thai green curry. I might have the sauce but not the rice. Like little swaps which remind me of what I've enjoyed before, but not so much that I'm, doing 100 grams of carbs in a day. I'm doing like below 50 on those days anyway. So
yeah, but even what you've just discussed in regards to your roast dinner, it's still meat heavy. That's still carnivore, and it's the whole premise of being 100% carnivore. We would have consumed plant compounds during our evolutionary period because they're survival foods. We wouldn't have opted for them, but we would have consumed them. So you can't say that if you've eaten something that isn't a piece of meat, that it doesn't make you carnivore, because you're still 99%, whether we're looking at macros or whether we're looking at, from a caloric value, we still predominate animal proteins and animal fats. So nobody can say that that's not carnivore. The difference is that you and I have healed the body in such a way that these things don't affect us anymore. Our gut has been healed. And if we put these compounds in, our bodies are able to deal with them. The difference is that somebody coming into this from a standard way of living is highly inflamed, suffers with severe intestinal permeability, and it takes a long time to heal the gut when you come from that place, doesn't it? So for somebody new to the lifestyle, it can take many, many months, even I dare say as long as 12 months, maybe to get to the point where they've healed these issues in their body, and you can maybe put these things back in. But a piece of bread, as you say, that Philadelphia on sandwich once a month is not going to cause any damage to your gut now because it's been healed. You probably don't feel so brilliant after, I should imagine, but it's certainly not causing that damage, But that one piece doesn't make you not carnivore,
Yeah, and I've discussed this with Lee Coppice, our friend before, so that's Kent Carnivore. There's some foods which he will not tolerate at all, and they'll be detrimental. The same with you and, for example, black pepper. For me, it's dark chocolate, or any chocolate really, and berries. They really disrupt my guts disproportionately to how much I eat. For example, if I have like 3 or 4 raspberries, a bit of cream or something, my dad's like, "Oh, have some, we've got loads left." Oh, all right, okay, fine. I don't really deviate when I'm competing, but if I'm on off season, it's not going to break the bank, my gut will swell up about 4 or 5 inches. It's like an inch for each raspberry. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make physical sense, but that's my body reacting to food that I'm taking in.
Yeah. So mine will do that if I consume, as you rightly say, pepper. Well remembered, highly sensitive to pepper, which I never realized before. I used to think pepper was incredibly beneficial. It's not, as you know.
It's a floodgate opener.
Yeah. It's
CPY enzymes inhibits things which break down drugs. So whatever you take in, so say, for example, Rich, you have some black pepper and a curcumin supplement, and you have your, meat, meal, eggs or something. Okay, what's going to happen next? Well, I've got a sore knee from riding or swimming or cycling or running, whatever you do. Okay, well, that's going to proliferate the effects of ibuprofen that you might be taking. So if we got more circulating through your system, so therefore gut permeability goes back up. So that's the double-edged sword to supplements, which people don't quite always understand. They're not always totally innocuous. That's the thing.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, the SIP P450. Phase 2 detoxification. Pepper doesn't work so well with me. And interestingly, if you are one who suffers with cold sores, then pepper is going to bring these out. So if you're trying to tie in when you have a flare up, look into the foods you consume. Unfortunately, pepper seems to be in everything, so I've got to be incredibly strict. Seed oils cause massive flare ups in my belly. So if I eat out in a restaurant and I've asked them not to cook in seed oils, if they have any form of cross contamination with utensils that they've been cooking something else in, I'll know all about it. My belly will do what yours does with some, with 4 raspberries. It'll become extended by some inches and incredibly uncomfortable. And there are a few other things as well. Chocolate doesn't seem to affect me, but it affects you. It's not something that I consume a lot of, but it would probably be my go-to if I were to go for something sweet. But it doesn't seem to impact me whatsoever. But again, if I do ever eat chocolate, which isn't very often, then it's not an awful lot. But it's dark chocolate I think can be problematic, especially because of the oxalate. What else affects me? Vegetables in general seem to affect me big time.
The sheer volume of it and the fiber, they seem to really harm me. For example, I'm going to say this and people are going to be like, no, that's not true. But it's one of those N=1 things. You give me a whole multi-bag of Haribo. All right, I eat the whole thing, 175 grams, something like that. It's probably bad that I remember it's that much weight. Whoops. But yeah, I used to consume loads of them after gym. I used to consume like 2 bags of gym prior to carnivore. Or I could have something like, a few blueberries, or some slightly undercooked carrots. The blueberries and carrots are going to mess me up more than Haribo. Because the Haribo is essentially just sugar, gelatin, colors. For me, as an individual, it doesn't hit me as hard as like the cellulose and all the things we can't digest. So
yeah, snap, 100%. I think because we are highly insulin sensitive, And again, that's something that's been up for debate recently within the community, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. But it's we can deal with this incredibly well. So it is sugar, essentially. Quite often they're lacking the seed oils as well, which can be problematic. But we are designed to cope with bursts of sugar. But it's the fiber. So if I consume, as you rightly say, broccoli or spinach or carrots or any plant compound for that matter, it upsets my stomach incredibly quickly, and I know all about it. But I can consume large, as we know from when we're competing and when we do our refeeds, there are certain carbs that we can put in, and it doesn't affect us at all. It's not the sugar per se, is it? It's the source of the sugar. The difference for you and I is we've healed the gut. We're now incredibly insulin sensitive, and I know insulin resistance technically doesn't exist, but for the context of the people listening, we'll use that term. We're not insulin resistant. The body's working the way that it should. We've recovered and repaired and healed all of these processes. So sugar for us is just dealt in the way that it should be. So I agree, I think exactly the same in regards to sugar versus plant compounds. Plant compounds detrimental for me, incredibly detrimental.
Yeah, it's hard to work out which one's the problem because your body's biologically adaptive and dynamic at all times. For example, like you said about the black pepper, that might be the worst thing you can eat right now. Give it a few years down the line, perhaps something happens, your exposure changes, the mold around you changes, you're in a different home, whatever, your microbiome changes, okay, you're in a different position then. Therefore, your susceptibility to the illnesses from different foods, toxins could also change. So it's an ever-moving thing. So right now, I do not tolerate dark chocolate. My symptoms of autism are horrendous. Like I just avoid people because I know I'm so tricky to deal with. But that's just me,
Yeah, it is, and I've noticed in during my journey that there are things that will affect me now, which never appeared to affect me before. But I think my opinion on this is, and this is something that I get asked quite often, or statements made to me, is that I've gone keto, and keto has made me gluten intolerant because now I've put gluten back in and it's playing havoc within my body. But the fact is, you've always been gluten intolerant, and I think I usually attest this to drinking alcohol. Like the first time you have a beer or a glass of wine, you feel tipsy. It affects you straight away. Next time you can have 2 beers, 2 glasses, and it appears to affect you less. It takes more of that alcohol to get you drunk. And the more you drink, the less it seems to affect you. But it doesn't mean that damage isn't being caused. It's just your body's ability to recognize that damage is being diminished. And I think it's the same when it comes to these compounds, these fibrous compounds like the grains and so on and so forth. I think our body's early warning alarm systems lose their ability to recognize when we've put it in. And when we've removed them, those alarm systems become active again. And when we put them back in, the alarm bells ring. So I think it's a case of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, it comes down to how much we want to optimize ourselves. Richard, like me, you've had different health experiences which have left you bedbound for pretty much the majority of the day. So you know what it's like to feel your baseline level maybe like a 3 out of 10. Now, you've obviously come to like a ketogenic way of eating. You've experienced the benefit. You got ripped, competed as a physique bodybuilder. Now you're doing like different Ironman, triathlete, all sorts of mega stuff. But you're trying to always inch out for that 5-10% more, which is ultimately what we're sort of craving for as athletes. Now people will say, oh yeah, but it means we can't tolerate this. Well, no, but I get to live 10% better or 20% better, depending on what I'm trying to achieve that day. If my brain works 20% better, but it means that 99% of the time I can't eat donuts and Mars bars, I'm going to take it. It depends how much you suffered, So the people that I see that are strictest are the people that have suffered the most. So if they see that benefit and they want to reap every ounce of, health growth that they can. So,
yeah, I agree, and I think it's a shame that it takes something like that to open your eyes. I know that for me, if I wasn't so sick, then I wouldn't be living the way that I do now. And I think this is the problem when it comes to a lot of people, especially athletes currently, that live in the way that they have up until now has allowed them to become athletes and achieve great things. So why are they going to change it? Because comparative to everybody else, they're fit and healthy, but they could be even fitter and healthier by removing certain toxic compounds. For me, it's all about the 1%, as you say, the 5 to 10%, all of these little incremental changes. I'm a sugar addict. I'm addicted to sugar. I love eating meat. I love the fat on the meat. But when I gravitated into this way of living, I was predominantly plant-based. So I was more of a plant-based ketogenic person. Yes, I've always consumed meats, but I believed that broccoli and spinach and kale were essential. So I predominated these within my lifestyle. I was fitter and healthier than I'd ever been before. But the less plant I consumed and the more animal proteins, the healthier and fitter that I became. For me, because I'm in pursuit of optimal health, if somebody told me spinning around 3 times and touching the floor, spinning around 3 times on one leg and touching the floor before running a race would allow me to run 1% faster, I would do it. I'd test it. If there was research to show that this was possible, I'd be doing this. Now, if the research was there and if it were true that carbohydrates and plant compounds were beneficial, I would be consuming them. I want to be consuming carbs. I want to be consuming, the plants that I used to consume and used to enjoy. If I could find a way of eating, a large bolus of animal proteins and natural fats with my carbohydrate and thrive, that's exactly what I would be doing. But the fact is, and I've tested it for many, many years, I've tried carb loading, back feeding, front loading, whatever you want to call it. I've tried putting carbs in at all different points from different sources, every source that you can think of. And the fact is that I've never felt better than when I've completely removed them and all plant compounds. I wish that I could find the means to put them in, but the fact is that I genuinely believe that they're not beneficial at all. It's certainly for me, at least.
For sure, yeah. I mean, Richard's, for anyone listening, Richard's as much of a health advocate, biohacking athlete kind of guy as I am. You track all your things like me. You probably measure your sleep and all sorts of bizarre, wonderful things. How you feel each day, what your body's doing. That's because we strive for the best with those sort of personality types. We sort of try to encourage people to be the same because we consult with lots of people that are constantly ill, and you're like, God, if you just 10% more adherent, you just did this, and they probably get all the benefit. But it's interesting you said about training and exercise performance. My experience has been exactly the same. So, like yourself, I run the experiment. What's the optimal carnivore diet or mixed balanced diet with some innocuous vegetables and some fruit that are low in fiber, apparently with honey and meat and pork salad, stuff. So I tried it and I was like, well, I don't think it's going to be helpful, but I'm going to pay my due diligence and actually do the experiment myself so I know the off chance that I'm missing out on something. So what I did was I did equated the calorie intake of my food. So I labeled food calorie amount. The protein was kept the same. And I basically just switched around the carbs and fats. So the carbs were like next to nothing. But what I did was increase the carbs, reduce the fats, and my energy balance theoretically was the same. What I found was my strength, endurance, performance. So the amount of time I was able to lift for leg extensions and leg curls in the gym after 3 days of eating, this sort of way, was worse. It's about 10 to 15% worse. As in, say, for example, I got 100 kilos, I did 10 reps of leg extension. It was about 8.5, 9 the next time. And that's simply by changing my energy substrate. Now, there's probably some confounding variables, obviously, because I started eating something I wasn't before. So maybe it upset my guts a little bit. Maybe I didn't transmute enough energy downstream through the electric transfer chain as effectively. But I mean, if I'm to think of it from the flip side, what does a carnivore diet offer me? And that's a study I'd like to see. So I'd like to see carnivorous athletes and mixed macronutrient athletes perform the same sort of thing, maybe a washout period, A and B group, I don't know. Then all I want to get them to do is say, look, do your exercises, just measure your strength, A to B, point A to B basically. Then measure things like lactate levels, blood carnosine levels. So I'm pretty sure the carnosine levels of the athletes with a carnivorous diet is greater, which buffers lactic acid, which means if you're doing a high intensity row, like for example, Sean Baker, who's like smashing records and stuff, and soon I'm pretty sure you'll be smashing them. You're going to look at these things and it's going to be, okay, a minute bout of this exercise, a sprint on a bike. I can do this on a Wingate sprint test or this. Adding carbohydrates, these numbers, these blood values go down or up, depending on what end of the experiment you're doing. And saying from there, okay, that impacted exercise performance a lot. So that'd be my speculation, is the carnosine sort of levels in the body.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, again, I'm in every aspect of what I do, I want to live as long as I can. If putting in some form of carbohydrate, whether it be honey, for example, as some advocates have recently said to put in, I'd be doing that. But Snap, same as you, whenever I put these in, I notice that everything seems to fall apart. I don't feel as well. I get the brain fog. Athletic performance is hindered. I feel sluggish. I feel bloated. I feel inflamed. The best that I feel and ever have felt is when I'm at my strictest, and I'm incredibly competitive. I'm never going to be the best runner or cyclist because I'm not the juice isn't worth a squeeze for me. I'm not willing to run 70 miles a week. Yet I compete against the runners. I run like 6 or 7 miles a week. And I race against these guys and girls who run 70 miles a week, literally running 10 times more a week than I do. And I'm fairly competitive. I may not be winning some of these guys are coming in at like 15, 16 minutes, but I'm coming in at 17 minutes on a 5K, for example. Which is pretty tasty for someone who's running, 6 or 7 miles a week. So it's, for me, I don't want to run hundreds of miles a week because it's not something that, it tickles my fancy. And this is why I'm gravitating more into like high rocks style training, short, sharp, explosive stuff. But whatever I do, I don't want to just participate. I want to be competitive, at least within my age, so, and that's what I do. Whenever I run or race, I'm competing against others within my own age category. I'm being fairly new to this. I don't do that bad. Well, speaking of which, you competed in 24. You came back to compete in bodybuilding. Brought an incredible condition to the stage. I mean, ripped, shredded, almost transparent.
Almost.
Almost see-through. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had my spine fused on December the 12th, 2022. And the moment I was able to stand up after surgery, which was the next day, something like that, with crutches and bottles of blood attached to me and all sorts of rods up my backside and, the whole works. I looked like I just come out, I was like Neo coming out from the Matrix where he got stuck in that chamber, I looked a bit like that, honestly, a bit less gooey, but yeah. Anyway, so I was like, God, what is the biggest challenge I could do right now? A few things that came across my mind. I was good at sprinting, was good at swimming, sports in general. Boxing, I've never done that. Boxing is quite interesting. But my brother did boxing, and that was his thing. You don't want to walk in someone else's shadow. You want to have your own journey and not just copy someone else. So actually, this is going to sound very arrogant, but my biggest fear was I was going to compete in about a year and a half from then, do a box competition and absolutely smash it. Because my brother didn't win it because he unfortunately got forfeited from it from no fault of his own. And I was like, well, if I do that, that's going to really bug him because he didn't do that. So I was like, what else would you? I enjoy bodybuilding. I love competing, go to the gym. I will go to the gym for as long as my body lets me. I love it. I can either sit here, and swallow in pain, or I can go to the gym and be in a bit less pain from the endorphins for an hour, 3 times a week, something like that. So it's an easy decision. So immediately I was like, okay, I'm going to do a competition. This time I'm going to be stricter than ever, much better managed. So getting regular blood testing, speaking to people like yourself, Stephen, Phil, Bart K, anyone in my space which is like does have expertise in health, exercise performance, some kind. So I had all this sort of support and backing, so I could ask people questions. I'm dealing with this. What do I do? Also got a coach who was managing my diet and training and a drug protocol at the time. Yes, guys, most bodybuilders do use drugs. The difference is I'm not afraid to admit it. And it's they're different. Natty versus enhanced, I'll just briefly say, they're both very difficult, but they're both very difficult for different reasons. The challenge you face as either end of the spectrum are very individual. They're both hard, so I don't poo-poo anyone that is enhanced or natural. It doesn't make a difference to me. But yeah, so I got into shape, and it was the easiest contest prep I ever had because I kept my body healthy. I was doing all the biohacks, the red light therapy behind me. I was tracking my metrics. What's my sleep like? Digestion like? Is my meal size too big? Do I need to be more intuitive? Do I need to push my first meal further back or further forward? Every part of my day was micromanaged to ensure that I had the best possible experience, which means your mindset's going into it is going to be better because you've ticked all those boxes, no stone unturned sort of thing. So yeah, I got through the first competition. I had very lights out conditioning for that. And at height of just shy of 6'1", I competed at 90.7 kilograms. And about 4 or 5 months later, which is a long time to wait for the next show. So that was the qualifier. The next one was the finals. I competed at 93.7 kilos. So I gained 3 kilos of muscle in that time in a deficit. And my drug use, I know this isn't like a health advocacy kind of thing. I don't suggest anyone use them. Not medical advice either, but it is about 1/3 less than what it was before. Because I kept myself in good nick. So I was using supplements to enhance my glutathione levels, my antioxidant status, B complex, magnesium. The thing about bodybuilding at the level that Rich and I have taken it to in terms of like physical conditioning, ripness, leanness, is a lot of things starts to fall apart as you get lean, whether you're natural or enhanced. So you have to slot in things, whether it be a diet, biohack, an intervention to help improve the bottleneck that I consider to be recovery, basically. So how do I recover better? How do I train harder? How do I get leaner? How do I minimize the impact on my body whilst doing that? So my step count was always kept between 4,000 and 5,000 per day, which is not a lot for anyone. But for me, it's a lot. I have to actively seek out that much step count. I'm largely sedentary. So what I used as the lever for fat loss was mostly 95% was diet. What I did was effectively not quite protein sparing modified fast, but it was basically very high protein, next to no carbs, maybe 20, 30 grams a day. And something like, I think the lowest we got to was 150 grams of fat. So I'd rehash that. So I think we did about 360 protein, 30 carbs at most, and 150 fat. That was the lowest my food intake got. Meanwhile, my coach, great guy, his name's Marty Rice. He owns South Coast Powerhouse down here in Bournemouth. He was dieting on about half the labeled theoretical food calorie units than what I was. We're both 6'1" He also was doing an hour or two of cardio a day. He's eating quite a high protein diet. He is struggling with food volume, just because, if you add in like that much rice, okay, that's a lot of energy, but not much nutrition. So I knew that what I was putting in was working better for me. He still got in shape. He still did the work. He put in the graft. But my kind of reason for advocating for a carnivore way of body composition improvements, for the training, diet, and lifestyle is that it just makes your life so much easier. I've competed many, many times now, maybe 9 or 10 times. And the last 3 shows I've done have been carnivorous. I'd say it's been night and day how much easier it is to compete. You feel better, you sleep better, you recover better, your joints feel better. Your output in the gym is the same, so you retain the same level of muscularity, if not even gain some if you didn't have that much before. So that's basically what happened last year. So I won the regional show. The second show I came, I believe, I'd have to estimate about 7th. There's about 15 of us on stage. But meanwhile, I did that with destroyed spine and a degrading hip joint, chronic fatigue syndrome, and autistic spectrum disorder. So it's amazing how far you can push your body, because I should not have been able to do that competition. Now, as tenacious as I am, as tenacious as Rich knows that I am, I'm going to do it again in 2025. This time I'm going to be more ripped and bigger than ever. I'm going to piss a lot of people off because I'm going to show them what can be done if you follow a carnivore diet and let your body do what it's meant to do.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I can't wait for that. Yeah, can't wait for that. You know, listening to that, I mean, for people who don't understand the bodybuilding scene, you know, when you mentioned seventh there, you know, people don't understand that is, you know, within your category, that's arguably seventh in Britain. You know, so
That's right.
You know, it's people will look at, oh, but you didn't win or didn't come second, didn't come third. Wait a minute, you're talking about every competitor or every person within the UK. That's number 7 out of everybody, you know, within your category within the UK, which is an incredible achievement within, you know, like a year basically of training and doing it completely different to the narrative in regards to the high carbohydrate content. And your condition was incredible. I mean, people would die to look that way. Yeah, I think what you achieved was absolutely phenomenal. And if you can improve on that in 25, wow, yeah, I can't even imagine what type of condition you're going to get into.
What I may do is I may send you a photo of what I've done the last 6 weeks. I've gained something around the magnitude of 6 kilos of lean muscle tissue, and my ab thigh skin folds are the same, if not less, than what they were when I started. So it's going to be a much bigger physique next year. My issue, my bottleneck, is that it's a lot of food. Gaining when you're already a big, heavy guy, as I'm sure you know when you compete back in the day, it becomes a lot of food on a carnivore diet because you're so satiated. So it's, I'd say a carnivore diet lends itself more beneficially towards getting lean. But I think when it comes to pushing envelopes to get from, say, where I am, I say midweight in terms of my category to get to the next level, so an open bodybuilder, it'll be very hard. Not because there's a deficiency in the carnivore diet, but I think because when you're adding carbohydrates to the diet, you end up increasing the amount of food you can eat so you can continue to gain more weight. And, you know, you say weight, yeah, it is muscle, but it's a lot of fat as well. So it all has to come off in the end. So I'm thinking now where I'm at with my health, my joints, things like that. I'm not trying to gain 20 kilos in the off season. I'm trying to gain pure lean muscle tissue every week. And I've looked at studies of what's achievable. So I've set my tracker. These are my goal posts for each week, and I've met them every single week so far. So I'm very excited, honestly.
Fantastic. And that's the difference. You know, it's anybody can gain weight. And this whole premise of being like in the off season with, you know, there's a saying, isn't it, within the bodybuilding community when bulking, you know, if it's not nailed down, eat it. And I don't agree, because it's incredibly easy to gain the wrong type of weight. And as you say, you've got to put your body through a lot of stress. You've got to wait for that skin to tighten as you go through that process of cutting. But doing it your way, you build the lean mass without having to gain, you know, excess body fat. Interesting. What would you say is the maximum that the body is capable of building in regards to lean muscle each month?
Each month? That's a good question. Yeah. So I'd say someone in my position, an advanced lifter, an advanced performance enhancing drug user, I guess you might say. I'm happy to be open about it. I just don't talk about drugs in terms of dosages, just because people will ask, and I'll get an 18-year-old come to my channel and ask me and do the wrong thing, basically. And they don't realize it's the cherry on top. It's not the foundation of what I'm trying to achieve. I'd say it probably is somewhere around about 400 to 800 grams per month as an enhanced athlete. And of course, as you get bigger, close towards your end point in terms of maximum muscularity, it's going to diminish. You're not going to get that same 800 grams. If I had to sort of really guess from what I've seen, the most I've seen anyone gain muscle naturally is about 200 grams per month, so about half a pound a month. So what we find in recent studies, recent literature is we don't need to be adding in 10, 20% surplus of food to gain muscle. We're looking at maybe 5%, maybe. What's interesting about my diet, my way of eating, is I've not had to really deviate that much. So I started off with my macros being, I believe, 350 protein, 20 carbs, and I believe at 175 fat. That landed me at something like 96 kilos, 98 kilos, something like that. Now I'm doing 330 protein, or 340, I think 340, 20 carbs, and 240 fat. So I've increased my fat intake by, I don't know, 75 grams or 65 grams, something like that. And I've also reduced my protein intake. And people say, oh, if you're trying to get bigger, you've gained muscle and you've reduced your protein, why do you do that? Well, to make room for the fat, if I'm honest, I'm really pushing the boundaries in terms of how much a human can eat. So I'm making like butter bites, and say I've got a fatty 80-20 percentage lean fat ground beef burger. I'll then drench that in patties of fat like butter. And like you, I have the fatty bits. I don't leave anything behind. Nothing gets wasted in my house at all. That's been my experience. Yeah, you don't need to eat massive amounts of food. So people out there saying, oh, Jonathan weighs about 102 kilograms. He's 6'1". Oh, I'm about 98. Yeah, but are you walking around right now at about 5-6% body fat? Probably not. And are you carrying extra weight from the exogenous carbohydrates? Probably, yeah. So you have to be realistic for your goals. And what I suggest people will do, because also I've blurted out a lot of information there about like how much and what's possible in a time frame. I'd say looking at there's 2 websites or places I'd research online. So one is, I believe, Casey Butt's Max Natural Potential Formula. It'll basically create an indices of how much muscle you can gain, and it'll be like, okay, if you're this weight, this height, whatever stats, maybe you're like 90% of the way there. And obviously, when you get 1%, that's when we're looking at like Micah Hearn or something. You know, that last part, you know, the elite tier genetics of whether it is or isn't natural. But yes, besides the point. But yeah, then there's another one which is called FFMI.org or something like that. That's another calculator. Basically, it works out your fat-free mass index. It'll again provide you a scale where you can say, I'm in the middle of the scale. If you're middle of the scale, average, trying to gain muscle, you can say, okay, over 3 or 4 years, maybe I'll gain 3 kilos, something like that. Very attainable. But it comes down to getting in the gym, being disciplined, and not thinking in terms of like 1 week blocks. Think of the bigger picture. You know, if you're making no gains for a month, then the next month you make a double amount of gains. What doesn't matter? You've still achieved what you want to achieve within a set period of time. So setting realistic goals is very important. And obviously, you're not going to stick at it very long. You're going to get fed up and think, why am I not improving? And that's why I suggest speaking to people like myself or Rich here to guide you along the way. You know, we do provide resources. Rich has the school, he has YouTube, different ways to sort of collaborate and communicate with you. You can consult with him. You can do the same things with me. I think you're looking at producing more content down the line for different kind of niches as well. So the information is out there. You just have to find it and spot people that want to get you towards your endpoint, your results. There's a lot of people out there that kind of suck you into this idea of like changing routines all the time, and your body doesn't guess, or no guesses or randomness. It just knows that was hard, that wasn't hard. So I think people need to adopt a plan, run the experiment, like we say about health. You know, add something in. Did it help? No. Okay, pie it off. Maybe give it another week. Give it a bit of a chance. Did it work? No. We'll change it. You know, that's how all things should be. So adopt the same sort of habits you apply towards managing your health journey, your diet journey, with your training journey as well. You'll find there's some interesting overlap.
Yeah, some really good points there. And I think, you know, one of the biggest things for me is accountability. And what I've noticed within the industry is even the best coaches have coaches. Yes, they know what to do, but they need somebody to be accountable to. So anybody who's listening who is interested in gravitating into competing in the world of bodybuilding as a carnivore, or even not, I'd highly recommend booking Jonathan for a consultation. Maybe even signing up to some sort of training program. I don't know if you offer coaching for athletes. I should imagine that you do, but
yeah, I keep it all the same price as well, Rich. So whether someone comes to me, a lifestyle client, Brenda Morris from, I don't know, Michigan or something, it's the same price. If you're 12 weeks out, it's the same price. Because I think the level of the standard of information that you put out should always be the same. It should always aspire to be better. Now, if I'm charging, say, Rich to be an elite, I don't know, bodybuilder or whatever, then I'm training someone else to be, you know, a mum that can kick a football down the path, part of her sons. And I'm not putting all the effort into that. Well, she's going to get fed up with me after a while because I'm not giving her the time of day. So everyone has their own unique goals. You have to sort of be understanding that they don't all have to be elite or professional. It's just what puts you in a better position at that time for you, and what gives you the best bang for your buck.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, everybody has their own goals, as you rightly say. I think that's an important point. But if anybody wants to book you for consultations or coaching, Jonathan, where can they find you?
Yes, I'd recommend going to a website, which is compositionconsultant.com. My Instagram is currently unavailable, but you can find me at Carnivore Muscle usually. My YouTube channel is Carnivore Muscle as well. I put out as much free content as I could possibly can. If you don't want to buy my stuff, that's completely fine. I don't tell people to buy my stuff, but I will say I do live Q&As with Rich and the guys sometimes. Scout out some questions there, make a list, find out what you want to find out, and that's what I suggest as well. So it's not always about selling something. There's a bit of give and take, and the thing is, if people are going to find out the information that we give out, because we are good at what we do, I say it very proudly, because we have the testimonials, we have the results, we have the outcomes. You've got athletes which are tremendous, absolutely inspirational people. So the truth is out there. You just need to find it, and if you need a more refined approach, you approach one of us, pay for a time, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, spot on. Look, I think, I get a lot of flack within this community because I charge for consultations. That's what pays my bills. That's my job as a nutritionist. So as you say, everything that we can cover as far as health and well-being, we've probably covered at some point in one of the hundreds and hundreds of videos and lives that we've done on YouTube. And it's there, and they're there. If you want to go and see those for free, those videos are there for free. That's why we do those lives. That's why we do these videos. Should you want something that is tailored specifically to you and you don't have time to spend hours and hours and hours trolling through YouTube for the free information, then it's there available to you in a consultation with Jonathan, for example. You just sign up, you get that information there and then within that 60 minutes or whatever it is that your consultations last. And I think that's the difference. It's that tailored approach to that person as an individual. Because you and I we'll speak with this person, we'll look into the information that they've provided, and we will formulate a plan based on that person as an individual there and then within that moment. And that's the difference. The information is out there. Everything that we can teach you in a consultation is there in some live or, podcast that we've done previously. But the beauty of the consultation is it's one-to-one. You get to ask your questions. You get in-depth answers tailored to you as an individual, which to me, is priceless. And this is why I love doing the lives with, the likes of yourself and Stephen and Phil and Ben and everyone else that we do these podcasts with, because I learn, every time we chat, I learn something new. And I think that's important because it's, we're in this environment in which the evidence and the science is constantly evolving. Nobody knows all the answers. And collectively, we're all our own experiments, and we bring these together and we can learn from each other. And we do. The advice that we put out, I think, is quite literally life-changing. So highly recommend booking a consultation with Jonathan on anything health-related. But your forte, I believe, is athletic performance and bodybuilding.
Mostly, yeah, just because it's what I've done. It's funny, though, because it sounds very obvious, but if you think between me, Rich, Coach Stephen, Phil, Ben, I don't know, who else, Alan, Reeves, I'm missing someone. Lee's not a coach, but if you think between all of us, I've worked with, I've just checked, probably 600 carnivores, something like that. Then if I ask, say, Steven's been coaching for like a decade. So he's probably in the thousands. Rich could be in the thousands as well. Phil's in the thousands, I'm pretty sure. Then I've managed a health food shop. I've consulted people while I'm there. You spot all these pigeonholes, these bottlenecks, these reoccurring problems. You work out what's the best solution. Then obviously, if I get more information, someone can sit with me or Rich for an hour. Maybe it's that last 20 minutes of information that makes all the difference. It means you can click and get the problem solved the first time. And sometimes we can't always solve it straight away, but it just takes time in a lot of cases. So I do encourage anyone to get in touch with either one of us. And I think Rich right now has an offer on his consults, something like half price. Come on, guys, has a value for money, if you ask me. you know,
appreciate that. And likewise for your consultations, Jonathan, I think highly recommended. Certainly for the bodybuilding. There's tons of other stuff that I'd love to get into, but I think we've covered an awful lot there. We'll get another call booked in because I wanted to get into, the autism side, which is one of the reasons that you come into this, but that'll be a call for another day. So I'll pop all of the links to your coaching in the information below, but fantastic chatting as always, my man. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll definitely collaborate again. What I'd suggest people do is maybe below this video when it comes out, ask some questions related to autism. What do you want to know from me, my experience? Because autistic people are very submerged, hidden in this kind of community online, because by nature of how they are as individuals, special people, they struggle to communicate. They don't always have the access to speak with someone online. Maybe they just want to type a little email out and say, can you answer this question? I'm wondering about this. We'll have an answer for you. So that's what I'd highly suggest doing. But thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate that.
Yeah, fantastic idea. A brilliant chat, and as always, thank you, my man.